Tom and Dan here again with Bart Marek to talk about purchasing a home.
Yes. Bart, my first question to you is, I'm looking to buy a house, don't know where to go from here, but I know I want to buy a house. What's my first step?
Okay, the first thing you want to do when you want to buy a home is to get pre-qualified, pre-approved to purchase a home. You can't do anything moving forward without that. If you're buying a house with cash, and here are really the options to buy a home. You can A, buy a house with cash, which is just what it sounds like. I got $200,000 and I'm going to go buy a $200,000 home.
Boom.
Beyond that, your other options are going to be getting a loan, and there's different types of loans. Most of my clients who call me up because of you guys tend to be first-time home buyers. I get a lot of that. With first-time home buyers, most of them go through an FHA loan, which is 3.5% down to buy a house. It's really about the least most people can put down to purchase a home.
Yeah.
You could also go, if you're a vet, with a VA loan, 0% down. If you're buying rural property, you could put 0% down in USDA. Or you could also go with a conventional loan, which could be 5% or higher, depending on what you want to choose to put down as well. To qualify for that, and the big question I do get from a lot is, what do I need to qualify for those types of loans? And it really comes down to just three things. You need, one, to have a credit score of 620 or higher, and you're also going to need to have W-2s or 1099s for the last 2 years proving employment, as well as three, the amount of cash needed to make the down payment on the property itself. If you have those three things, then you're good to go. You can buy a home.
That's really not that complicated.
Gotcha.
You know, that's pretty easy stuff.
Where do I go to get the loan? Can you point me in the right direction?
I have a lender that I work with. I have a couple different lenders I have one in particular that I tend to direct most of my clients who are just my typical, I want to buy a house clients.
And they can go there, get pre-approved, and then work with you to find the home.
Right. And if there's some other, and I'll work with that lender to make sure that I get your pre-approval letter and everything, the ball's rolling with them. Some of my clients who work for companies that have unions or work for the government may be able to get different types of loans through their work or through their employer or so forth.
Yeah.
Like Disney employees tend to have the ability to get loans, special loans through a bank that Disney works with. It really depends. But if you don't have one, call me and I can help you find the best way or best lender to work with in your circumstance.
How do I know how much to get pre-approved for?
Lender is going to pre-approve you to buy a home that your mortgage payments will be no more than a third of your income. Okay. So if you are buying a house that, if you make $100,000 a year, they don't want you spending more than $33,000 a year on your mortgage. If you have a combined income, same thing. They're going to take a look at that, your wife, your spouse, partner, and see what their income is. And sometimes, by the way, if you're married, it may be easier to purchase a home under one name. Doesn't mean that both of you won't own the house. It just means one of you will have the mortgage. I run into a circumstance quite a bit where somebody doesn't have the best credit, and usually it's the wife who has the best credit, and she'll come in. And
funny how that works out.
It is. It really does. They'll come in and step in with just their line of credit, just their income, and be able to get a mortgage on the property at that point. Well, the partner or spouse is on the deed as well, or on the property too. Yeah, and it's really not that difficult. It just depends on your particular circumstance, what you're going to qualify for. But once you have that, then we can start shopping for property. The process of going out and looking for homes is really just, what it boils down to is I need to get some basic information. And some of the most important information I can get is, one, where you want to look for a home. It's really difficult, and I get this quite a bit, especially with out-of-town buyers who call me up and say, well, I don't really know. I'm just kind of looking around Orlando. That doesn't help me. If you have a specific area, zip code, neighborhood, I need to know what that is to boil it down. Once I have the location on the property, the other thing we need to look at too is, what are you looking to purchase? Do you want to buy a home? Do you want to get a condo, a townhouse? There's different types of property. Most people tend to go for single family homes. I'll also point out, one of the biggest misconceptions I get from a lot of buyers who call me up is, I'll get this line. I'll get someone who calls me up and says, I want to buy a home, but I'm looking for a deal. Well, I've never had anybody call me up and say, I want to buy a house and I want to blow all my money on it.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for a deal, and the deals go real fast. And one of the big misconceptions is, just because a property is bank-owned or in foreclosure, that it's going to be a deal. Most of the time, it's not. I will tell you, the best deals that you can find in real estate are going to be when a seller doesn't expect to have to sell, and they have to sell quickly. Sure. And unfortunately, that tends to be circumstances like divorce, or where someone has to move because of a job real fast. Those tend to be the deals, and you have to be quick to find those deals out there on the marketplace. In fact, the best property, I can guarantee you, is on the market for less than 7 days, usually less than 48 hours. So when it comes on, you got to move on it fast. Go out and get it.
How much, this is uncomfortable, Bart, but how much do I have to pay you to hire you to find me a house to buy?
That's a great question, because that's also one of the big misnomers. It doesn't cost anything to hire me as a buyer. The seller pays my commission. when it goes to buying a property. So as a buyer, there's complete value for me because there's no cost to you whatsoever. Everything's paid for by the seller's side.
So I don't have to pay you for your time to show me the different houses or your time to look,
Yeah, you could send him a Christmas card with an ABC gift card in there. Get him a nice bottle of scotch or something. But.
So it's if I want to buy a house, I'm hiring you, Bart Marek. I don't have to pay you anything.
No. Your expected cost as a buyer is going to be roughly about 2.5% of purchase price, and that's going to be closing costs that are associated with what are called statutory fees, taxes, municipal fees involved. It'll also be just the act of closing, the title company that does it, the title insurance, all the pieces that they put alongside with it, comes out about 2.5% purchase price. So, in essence, if you're looking to buy a home like FHA, which is where a lot of my first-time home buyers do, requires 3.5% down plus 2.5% closing costs. You're figuring about 6% is what you need to purchase a home.
If I have never bought a house before, will you give me some advice? Say I go and I find a house and I say I like this house, but I ask you what you think. Will you give me your personal advice or is it all subjective on what I want? How does that part work? Will you help me through the process with your experience?
Absolutely. I'm not going to give you my opinion on the property other than what's professional and what could hinder the sale on the property. I'm not going to live there, so it's totally up to you.
Yes.
If you can envision yourself living there, that's one of the first steps. What I will point out are things that could be problematic when it gets to closing or to get your loan, which can be things like the roof, like the plumbing, like the electrical system. We need to check those things out, which the mortgage company is going to want to know: are these things working? Are they up to code? Are they up to what
and
we
that can
need?
slow the process. I've had a couple of deals, where maybe I didn't get the best guidance, which, I obviously before I found you, now I get it, but where it slowed the process down trying to even get insured on the home.
Yeah,
stuff like
think
that.
of it this way. If you go make an offer on a property, you're expecting to close in 6 weeks, and then 4 weeks into it, your insurance company calls you up and says, hey, we can't write a policy on this house because the pipes are 30 years old and they don't meet the standards of today.
Yeah.
You're back to square one, and you just spent money on an appraisal, you just spent money on inspection, you just spent time to try to purchase that property.
That's where I think people, our listeners especially, get a good value working with you. I didn't get a lot of guidance, when I tried to buy a house here, didn't know Bart at the time, and I actually had one where I paid for the inspection and everything, and there was a crack actually in the beams of the actual roof, and they couldn't get it insured. So it started the whole process over again. In fact, it nullified the entire deal.
Yeah, and I've had those happen, and there are things where you can't see what's behind the walls. And when we make an offer on a property, you should always make an offer based upon what you can see. There are obviously things that may come up during inspection that we may not know about. We may get up into the attic and find out, that there's a fire or there's a plague or there's something up there, whatever. Then we can go back and renegotiate. But we always make an offer based upon the condition of the house as we see it.
Now, what about if I like a house and the price on the house is higher than the inspection or the appraisal comes through? So then my bank will only give me a loan for $200,000 because that's what the appraiser said it's worth, but the seller wants $230,000. So there's a $30,000 difference. Am I screwed at that point?
Okay, that's a great question. Let's talk about how that works. In fact, let's start with the process from the point where the process to buying a house is going to take about 45 days, 6 weeks. When you start day one, you're going to put an escrow deposit down. Let's say, like you said, you're buying a $230,000 house. Usually, you're going to put down about 1% on the value of that home day one once the offer is accepted. So we're going to put down about $2,000. That money is going to go towards your down payment once we go to close. As we move forward, the first 10 days, you're going to do an inspection. You're going to go in, you're going to check the house out, make sure everything's up to the way you expect it to be. If not, we can renegotiate, or we can have work done, or we can back out. At that point, what you're talking about is we move forward. The next step is hiring the appraiser. You're going to go to your lender, say, okay, I want to hire the appraiser now. Go ahead and send them out there. Appraisals generally cost somewhere between $400 and $500, and that's why we do it after the inspection so we don't waste that money if we're going to back out otherwise. The appraiser is going to go out a couple days later, write up a report, send it to the bank. You'll get a copy of it back. Now, let's say, like you said, the house was $230,000, but the appraisal only comes in at $200,000. Depends on the type of loan that you have, but most of the time, you're going to negotiate something out between the two. Sometimes you'll get the seller to come all the way down to $200. Maybe you need to put some cash up, depending on the circumstance, above appraisal price. If you're FHA, you can't do that, though. Conventional loan, you can. So it does kind of depend on what type of loan you have and what your choices are, but generally, you're going to renegotiate somewhere towards your favor or maybe in the middle somewhere.
So there is options.
Oh, yeah. And, and if it doesn't work out, you just back out.
What should I offer if, let's say, theoretically, there's a $230,000 house? Are you going to help me? Like, I say I want to pay $150,000 for it. Would you submit that offer, or would you tell me like is there an insulting offer that you can sometimes send that would turn the seller off? And how do I negotiate?
Yes. Okay. First off, it's not an episode of Pawn Stars. There is no back and forth, and we're going to argue about this. It's actually a very formal process. The way I recommend starting, well, the first thing you got to do is gauge how long the property's been on the market that you want to purchase. If it's been on the market for 48 hours and you're coming in with anything less than 98, 99% of list price, then you're probably not getting it. If it's been on the market for a month or it's been on for a few weeks, then you have options. In general, for a property that's been out there for a little bit, what I do recommend is offering somewhere about 90% of list price and expecting to negotiate somewhere to about 95%. If you look at the data just of homes that have sold in Central Florida, the vast majority tend to sell in and around 95% of what they're asking for it. And the fact is that the marketplace will always find the correct price. It put it out there in a liquid market. Buyers will come in and make offers that'll dictate what the market price is on it. So if it's priced way out there, you're not going to be looking at it. If it's priced way under, you're probably never going to get a shot to go see it because it's going to sell. I've sold property that was priced correctly without it ever being shown, where we just list the property. I'll get a phone call from an investor and says, I'll just take it now, cash. I'll send you the paperwork right now. They don't need to go see it. So, where you price how to negotiate depends on the circumstances involved.
And my last question, Bart, is once we're at the closing and I sign the papers, how quickly can then I go in? Is that my house then, and I could just leave right there and go into my house?
Once you sit down to closing and you sign all the paperwork and your lender or your funds are sent over to the title company, the key is yours. You can go do whatever you like to do with it.
Gotcha. So right there, closing is the time.
Yeah, I've heard up north there are some states where they actually have a 2 or 3 day period where you'll close and then it kind of changes. We don't do that here in Florida.
Gotcha.
It's instantaneous.
So it's instant?
Yep.
Great. So
you want to get in there fast, man.
So I want to buy a house now. That's my and I want to use Bart.
Well,
and,
I appreciate you explaining all of that to us, man.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
No, that's good.
Awesome.